Okay, welcome everyone. I have on the Innovators Mindset today, Emery Freitag with Instruction Partners. Emily, great to have you on. Thanks for doing this in these unprecedented times.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So tell the audience kind of what business you're in and the challenges that you saw COVID-19 sort of impacting.
Sure. I am the co-founder and CEO of a nonprofit organization called Instruction Partners, and we are in the business of helping schools. Up until 2 months ago, we helped schools improve the core teaching and learning that was happening in their
Right.
in their schools. So, how are we teaching the
How a
right
school runs or the service it
our
does.
school run? Are we teaching the right content and our kids learning it? And what can we do to improve the answers to those two questions?
Right.
We chiefly work with the school system leaders and then the school principals, and then we help them support all of their teachers. And we are now very focused on doing that with an eye towards helping schools respond to COVID.
Yeah. Okay, so um, when this all came up maybe 6, 8 weeks ago, what was the first sign that you saw? Or, I mean, I know we've talked offline, you were really early on sort of recognizing the follow-on impacts, but what were you seeing like on the ground that made you pay attention?
Two things. One, I grew up right near New Rochelle, New York, which was
Okay.
a really early
Yeah,
hot
really a
spot.
hot spot. Yeah.
And then two, my husband works for a hotel data benchmarking company, and he has spent the past 3 months really studying the impact of COVID internationally.
Yeah.
So I think I was a little bit primed. We wrote our first blog about how schools should prepare for COVID. I think it was February 27th.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And most of our partners thought we were sort of crazy, and were even kind of worried we were stoking fear. So I think I just saw that one, when New Rochelle went from 1 to 100 within a week, I realized this was going to be everywhere. And two, that it was really just going to challenge schools in a completely novel way, and that it was going to require school leaders to actually reimagine school.
Yeah,
Um,
in
and
a time frame that they're not used to. I mean, schools were rethinking what education means, but in a much elongated time frame, and they had to like decide what to do in over spring break, basically, like in a week.
exactly. And they're still figuring it out, and I'm so impressed with the ingenuity that I'm seeing among a lot of school leaders. I think in particular, getting students more access to devices and internet is a place
Mhm.
that I've seen leaders really take action and find interesting solutions. Everything from driving buses that have Wi-Fi hotspots to different parts of the neighborhood, to creating parking lot hotspots so that people can drive their cars. And like there are really interesting things that schools are figuring out as we go. But it is a stress test on leaders of significant
Yeah.
magnitude.
Yeah. So talk about the resource hub in a matter of a couple days, I think. But you tell the story. You stood up an entire new aspect of what your nonprofit does. I think. Is that right?
Yes, we did. I think we're lucky in a couple ways. One, we're still sort of startup. We're 4 years old. We have that pattern recognition of what it means to start something from scratch. And two, our core business is helping leaders reimagine school within the normal context,
Right.
but that creates some muscles that we were able to flex quickly. So we first thing we did is we took stock on the needs. We created a hierarchy of needs that schools were going to have to face. And then we started amassing resources and solutions for those different needs. We've had to sort of migrate the website a couple of times because it's built out. We'll keep doing that. We're now thinking a lot about what is coming next for schools and what job do they need to be ready to do as students return. And
So let me stop you. Talk about the hierarchy of needs, because that's a really interesting framework that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, but is a beautiful framework for school leaders to figure out, okay, what do I do first and then next?
Yeah.
How does your hierarchy flow, or what is it like?
So, Maslow's hierarchy of
Yeah,
needs
sure.
starts with your sort of fundamental needs, and self-actualization is
Yeah,
at the top.
right. That's for the
Um,
person. A
that's for
school is on, different frame of reference, but similar.
what we realized the first level is schools actually had to at some level take care of themselves and reorganize to the new job that they are being asked to do. Then their first focus is and should be on safety and health, and that includes nutritional programs, grab and go nutrition. From there, we saw schools emerging into a lot of questions about policies, what they're allowed to do, what they're not. From there, student relationships and engagement, and then from there, learning. And what we're seeing is schools kind of move through a number of these phases concurrently, but that they really do need to attend to their own reorganization needs at some level.
Well, and you probably grow through the hierarchy, but you have to keep going back and like rethinking it, because the
Exactly.
facts on the ground change and the environment changes and the need changes, I would think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so
And it
then
will
with that framework, then you provide resources to help people at each stage. Is that right?
Yes, we do three things. One, we have resources to help leaders organize their action. Two, for certain common needs across schools, we've built grab and go resources that they can literally just send to teachers and use. So
Yeah.
we're also creating some open source products essentially. And then three, we are supporting our partners in doing this. So a toolkit is helpful, but hand holding is more helpful. And so we're in regular touch with the leaders of our partners and a growing number of schools to help them think through these questions.
What has the adoption rate been? What have schools been receptive? What's been the pace of people, availing themselves of these tools?
Yeah, we have seen about a 500% increase in traffic on our site. So we're somewhere in the 5,000 download a day rate in terms of the site activity. That's not
Let me just underline that or make sure I understand it. 5,000 leaders or teachers are downloading things that they can make their school better with every day.
Correct.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And it's still a fraction of education, of course, but we are seeing a growing number of amplifying organizations sharing it. It's on many state websites, et cetera. And we are also starting to do a number of kind of blog series and interview series with critical leaders in education around common questions that are coming. So we're doing a series that we're kicking off this week around how do we prepare to accelerate student learning when students are back in buildings? There's actually a lot of complexity to that. That's not something that we know how to do really well in education. And
does that mean the hybrid of like when it's safe to come back, how do we now mix the virtual benefits of being virtual and that power with the on-premise in-person teaching?
And really just like, what is the job we need to do? What do we need to understand about what students have learned or lost? And what action do we need to take in response to those findings?
Okay. And so talk to me about where you see this going. What's your vision over the next 6, 12, 18 months as we get through the health crisis and move towards the what I'm calling the new normal, like the new way to be?
Yeah, we see the next year for schools as a very complex time where they may have some students at home, some in school. Public health continues to be the key priority. We think by the time there's a vaccine or a scalable treatment, schools will come back fully into session, but there will be 2 years of economic constriction for schools. State tax revenue is really funds schools, and there will be real hits there. And then we think we'll settle into a final new normal in probably 3 years. Throughout that, what we're trying to do at Instruction Partners is work with a small set of schools we're calling front runners, where we are really with those front runners co-creating their plans and supporting them. No one is an expert in a pandemic.
Right.
We are certainly not, but we do hope we can be expert in partnering with schools around new solutions. From those front runners, we'll learn things that we then will share broadly and then also scale across
Yeah.
all of our partners.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks for the work you're doing. If people want to learn more, what is a website they can go to, or how do they dig in more about this?
Yeah, instructionpartners.org.
Okay.
And there's a link to schoolresourcehub.org, which is where we're
Okay.
housing all of our COVID support. And I'm at EB Freitag at Twitter.
Okay. Okay. Emily, thanks for this. Really great, exciting to see you sort of take the challenge and try to turn it into catapult for schools to figure out a way to navigate this.
Well, we are not frontline education deliverers, so we're trying to use that distance productively so that school leaders have some options for action as they come to new problems.
Yeah.
And we will keep trying to do that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for all you're doing. I really appreciate it.
You bet.